There's a lot that I can forgive, but there needs to be conversations and then in order for reconciliation, and part of that has to be accountability.
It started with one photograph, a single image from a Croatian yacht that appeared harmless at first glance but would soon unravel a sequence of doubts so severe that insiders say Prince Harry hasn't been the same since. The photo surfaced online 3 weeks ago, showing a group of well-known faces aboard a luxury vessel off the Dalmatian coast. Yet what froze observers wasn't the glamour of the moment, but a small detail hidden in plain sight, a navy bag stamped with the gold Soho House insignia. To most, it meant nothing. To Harry, it meant everything. We can see how this single object reopened a part of his past he thought was buried. The bag linked back to the exclusive network where Meghan first moved through elite social circles, long before the palace, long before royal titles. Those who know the Duke claim he immediately recognized the symbol. It belonged to the same world that had once welcomed Meghan as an insider, a network curated by her longtime friend Marcus Anderson. According to sources close to the Sussex Circle, that discovery set off days of restless searching and sleepless nights.
But what people don't know is the efforts that I've gone to resolve this privately, both with my brother and with my father, constantly for the last 6 years, but especially the last 2. I think my mother would realize the missed opportunity with Meghan being part of the institution, part of the monarchy. And I think she is looking forward to the time when William and I see eye to eye and are joined at the hip again.
Within hours, Harry reportedly began re-examining every early connection between Meghan and Soho House. He traced the timeline of her membership, her Toronto ties, and the familiar names that kept reappearing at every turning point of their relationship. What he found, insiders say, shook him to the core. Anderson, once thought of as a harmless socialite, had deep financial and strategic links to the global network that shaped the Duchess's path from an actress on Suits to a household name. By the time the yacht photo began circulating, the Duke had allegedly realized that much of their love story intersected perfectly with a string of orchestrated introductions. Meanwhile, observers point out that the tension between Harry's private doubts and Meghan's growing Hollywood presence was already visible at the start of November. When the couple attended Kris Jenner's lavish 70th birthday at Jeff Bezos' Beverly Hills mansion, they were photographed alongside Kim Kardashian, Justin Bieber, and Oprah Winfrey. Within hours, those photos disappeared from social media. Multiple outlets, including Page Six, reported that Harry personally requested their removal to avoid offending the royal family during reconciliation talks. But according to people familiar with the event, it wasn't just about diplomacy. It was about control over image. For Harry, the optics of being paraded at another star-studded gathering echoed the very machinery he was beginning to question. Behind that night's glamour, another layer of contradiction was forming. Meghan's attendance was described by entertainment reporters as another step in her Hollywood comeback plan. Yet, the erasure of those images signaled friction, with rumors suggesting Kim Kardashian had declined earlier collaborations with Meghan's lifestyle ventures. Industry voices whispered that Kris Jenner's later public show of support, resharing Meghan's Netflix trailer and magazine cover, was a deliberate attempt to smooth over unseen tension. To us, the sequence feels less like coincidence and more like careful choreography from competing teams trying to control the narrative. But the true fracture, insiders claim, was emotional. Harry had already been described as homesick, writing in a Remembrance Day letter that Britain is and always will be the country I proudly served. Those words, now read in hindsight, carry a sense of displacement that makes the recent discoveries even heavier. Sources close to the palace say the Duke's quiet reevaluation began after he stumbled on older reports connecting Meghan's social ascent to Anderson's network of financiers and brand strategists. At first, he dismissed them as tabloid gossip. Then came the Croatian yacht photo, the Soho House logo, and what some describe as his moment of awakening. Soon after, we're told Harry reached out to former contacts from his London years, men and women who once attended the same private clubs and charity galas now linked to Meghan's past. What they shared painted a picture of calculated positioning, invitations arranged through intermediaries, introductions made at carefully selected dinners, a mentorship system where access was currency. One former associate called it a finishing school for visibility, claiming that rising personalities were coached on behavior, fashion, and alignment with influential circles. If true, it suggests Meghan's introduction to Harry wasn't spontaneous. It was the final step in a long campaign of social alignment. As we examine the available records, another inconsistency emerges. Meghan's Soho House memberships across multiple cities were reportedly complimentary, her name attached to corporate accounts with no visible sponsor.
Now, Harry and Meghan have also been accused of hypocrisy after they restructured their staff, creating what has been labelled the Montecito Royal Court. What does that mean, Kinsey? What's happening?
Financial observers estimate that maintaining such status could cost upwards of $70,000 annually when combined with travel, styling, and hospitality expenses. Yet her suit's salary at the time would not have covered half that amount. Former insiders from the Toronto branch quietly confirmed that certain preferred members received undisclosed backing arranged by Marcus Anderson. We can only ask who funded those privileges and why. The pattern extends further. When we cross-reference the guest list from the 2018 royal wedding, the connections multiply. More than 60 names on Meghan's side were affiliated with Soho House or its global partners. Executives, stylists, media brokers, and brand consultants, many tied to Anderson's social ecosystem. Seen together, it reads less like a gathering of friends and more like a summit of allies. Even the seating charts reveal a curious arrangement. Anderson near key sponsors, media figures near palace aides. Some attendees now describe the atmosphere as eerily corporate, as if the event doubled as both a celebration and a statement of conquest. Around at the same time, Harry's relationship with his brother was reaching a breaking point. We recall how William had once cautioned him not to rush the engagement, warning that background checks raised red flags around Meghan's inner circle. Those warnings, dismissed at the time as jealousy, take on new meaning as these revelations surface. According to a palace source, Harry has recently reviewed private voicemails from that period, messages he ignored during the whirlwind romance. One contained a plea to look deeper into Marcus Anderson's network before proposing. Another mentioned that the same names appearing in Meghan's travel logs were showing up on donor lists for Harry's charities. If authentic, these messages could rewrite the entire timeline of the royal rift. We can sense the gravity of this moment. It's no longer about social gossip. It's about potential manipulation at the highest level of fame and influence. Meghan's current public moves, her podcast, her partnership with Netflix, and her rebranded lifestyle company As Ever now appear to some observers as the culmination of years of strategic grooming. Her recent comments about taking a step back to assess the brand sound calm on the surface. Yet to Harry, they reportedly echo the same language used by the advisors who once managed her ascent. The parallels are haunting.
Meghan Markle's podcast has ended its 8-episode run, and there are no plans to release a second season at this point. What a surprise.
As the weeks unfold, Harry's behavior has become increasingly withdrawn. Reports from Montecito suggest he spends long hours alone, reviewing documents, phone records, and archived footage. Former staffers say he is searching for the pattern, convinced that the marriage itself may have been the centerpiece of a larger design involving money, image, and power. We can only wonder what he might uncover next, and whether those behind the curtain will allow him to bring it into the light. Because if his fears prove even half true, the network that built the Duchess may be far bigger and far older than anyone outside that world has ever dared to imagine.
I don't think so, because William's a bit like me. He doesn't actually view Harry as a victim. He doesn't. He views Harry as someone who has been a complicit part in an attempt to bring down the British royal family, and so that doesn't make him a victim. Like, he might be a victim of Meghan, but he's not a victim in terms of his behavior.
We can already feel how the atmosphere around them has changed. Since the Croatian photo emerged, what once looked like a routine celebrity cycle has turned into something closer to crisis management. Insiders say Harry's private doubts are seeping into every part of their professional life. When we look at their latest public appearances, the soft smiles at charity galas, the rehearsed hand-holding at premieres, something feels off. The chemistry that once defined them has cooled into coordination. Meghan's team insists everything is fine, but people close to Montecito whisper that the Duke is retreating from public life while the Duchess pushes forward with her brand agenda. Behind that image of unity, we can trace a web of connections reaching back years before their first date. Multiple former Soho House members now claim that Marcus Anderson acted as more than a social connector. He allegedly played financier and gatekeeper for emerging personalities seeking entrance to elite spaces. Those familiar with the club's internal culture describe it as a power circuit, a place where introductions carried price tags and futures were negotiated over candlelit dinners. Some of these sources say Anderson handled what they call placements, arranging strategic encounters between promising faces and influential investors. If even a fraction of that is true, Meghan's early rise in that environment was no accident. It was architecture.
And if I were, if I were a troublemaker, I might accuse Harry and Meghan of unconscious bias in the employment department, looking at all the new faces that are coming onto work for Harry and Meghan independently and together for their entertainment ventures. And if history repeats itself as much as Harry whines that it does, both Harry and Meghan will continue to reject any and all sound advice and will potentially treat their staff.
Financial records from that era remain sealed, but investigative reporters have pointed out curious overlaps between Anderson's hospitality ventures and donors linked to media conglomerates in New York and LA. We notice a repeating pattern. Companies that later collaborated with Meghan's post-royal projects were already funding events she attended a decade earlier. Coincidence or coordination? That's the question echoing through both the palace and Hollywood circles. And while no one close to Meghan has addressed it directly, the sudden quiet from Anderson, who has avoided interviews since the yacht story broke, feels telling. Even within the entertainment industry, there's talk of how those same backers may have helped secure the Duchess's new Netflix partnership. One former executive described Anderson as a connector between private capital and public image, suggesting he was instrumental in pairing celebrity ambition with silent investors. We can't ignore how these threads intertwine. The same network that once hosted yacht parties and European retreats is now bankrolling media empires. The appearance of independence begins to look like a continuation of the same playbook, just with higher stakes. Observers note that this machinery has followed Meghan across every career pivot. From her as Everbrand to her podcast collaborations, the fingerprints of professional handlers are visible everywhere. A marketing insider revealed that multiple consultants who once worked under Anderson's hospitality group are now part of Meghan's extended PR chain.
I think so. I think that, as we've spoken about, this show has completely underperformed. It did not really appear on the Spotify charts. This was, of course, the podcast that she made with Lemonada Media. It's still unclear, actually, about what money has come from this podcast. So originally, when she signed up with Spotify, there was money up front. That deal went south. She signed up with Lemonada.
One of them even served as an advisor during her Netflix negotiations earlier this year. When asked about it, the streaming platform simply said, "We're a passive partner," leaving plenty of room for interpretation. For us, the phrasing feels cautious, as if the company wants distance from whatever power dynamics might now be surfacing. Meanwhile, Harry's isolation appears to deepen. Recent reports from UK correspondents suggest he has quietly reconnected with advisors from his former royal office, people who once managed his military initiatives and charities. He's said to be asking pointed questions about financial transparency and ownership structures tied to their joint ventures. At the same time, Meghan has taken a visible lead, attending conferences, launching her new product lines, and meeting investors without him. The contrast couldn't be sharper. One spouse pulling away from the spotlight, the other moving faster toward it.
Nothing.
She's nothing. And without her, Harry's life in America is nothing.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly.
He has a reputation to fall back
So they
on.
have a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, they need each other.
Yeah.
Those who track royal history can't help noticing the parallels. The image of a charismatic outsider rising through a circle of influence, supported by discreet financiers, has appeared before in European aristocracy. But what makes this case unique is how modern the methods look. Influencer marketing, private equity branding, lifestyle storytelling, all wrapped in the narrative of romance. We've learned that several of Meghan's business partners previously managed reputation campaigns for Silicon Valley founders and tech heiresses, which only reinforces suspicions that her path was planned, not spontaneous. At the same time, contradictions keep piling up. Meghan publicly describes her life as self-built, yet her ventures repeatedly benefit from partnerships that arrive fully formed with established funding and distribution pipelines. Harry, once vocal about rejecting the system, now appears trapped in another version of it. Only this time, the power resides in Los Angeles boardrooms instead of palace halls. Former friends in the UK say he speaks cautiously, as if aware that any wrong move could fracture both his marriage and the empire tied to it. Insiders claim the tension reached a peak during the production of With Love, Meghan. Reports from crew members suggest that disagreements over creative control turned personal. Harry allegedly refused cameo appearances despite studio pressure, fearing it would make him a prop in someone else's movie. Soon after, Meghan began referring to herself as a female founder rather than a duchess, a linguistic shift that many analysts read as her attempt to distance herself from the royal label while keeping the prestige attached to it. To us, it feels like a rebranding phase, one that mirrors the same calculated evolution Anderson was known for orchestrating. Now, whispers of international involvement are surfacing. Financial correspondents in Europe have pointed out investment trails connecting Meghan's as Everbrand to companies headquartered in Switzerland and the Middle East. These firms specialize in luxury hospitality and high-end marketing, industries that overlap neatly with Soho House's business model.
I don't think that Meghan realizes that she does these things and the reaction is she's a laughing stock. I mean, she just has no clue.
Could this be coincidence, or is it the next level of the same network that began grooming talent years ago? Even senior Hollywood agents admit privately that money with no origin story often funds these lifestyle ventures. That kind of financial fog keeps questions alive long after the headlines fade. While Meghan's representatives maintain that all partnerships are transparent, the secrecy around her investors only adds fuel to speculation. Every new interview, every carefully timed photo, now carries undertones of strategy. Even Kris Jenner's renewed public support, her reposts of Meghan's interviews and projects, looks less like friendship and more like alliance maintenance. The Kardashian matriarch knows power optics, and her gestures may be a signal to the Hollywood hierarchy that Meghan still has influential protection, no matter what storms brew behind closed doors. We can feel the story closing in on itself, looping back to that Croatian yacht photo, the moment that cracked the illusion. That single image has become a symbol for something larger, a reminder that every glamorous scene might hide an entire apparatus behind it. The more we connect the dots, the more it appears that Harry's discovery isn't just about personal betrayal, but about the possibility of a system designed to manufacture destiny itself. And so, as we watch the Sussex brand continue to expand while rumors of private turmoil multiply, we have to ask, if this entire romance was engineered, who's really in control now? The Duchess with her empire of elegance, the unseen backers pulling strings, or the prince finally waking up to the machinery around him? Whatever the truth, the Croatian photo remains the spark that refuses to fade. Because if what insiders hint at proves right, we're not witnessing the fall of a fairy tale. We're watching the exposure of an empire built on illusion. So, what do you think really lies behind the yacht, the smiles, and the silence? Let us know your take below and stay tuned, because the next revelation might change everything.